Hello, hello, hello. It is Thursday, June 11th. We are almost at the middle of June. I'm so excited. The weather has broken. It is hot. Summer is summering, and I can't wait. I love the hot weather. Welcome to Let's Talk Power Live, where we talk about power in education in real, operational, on the ground ways. I'm Dr. I'm delighted to welcome you here to our subscribers. We want to thank you for being here with us every week. And we ask you to please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the share button, leave us a comment, put on the notifications. We want Let's Talk Power Live to go far and wide. To our daters, those of you who join us every week but haven't hit the like, share, subscribe button, going to invite you to join us, become part of the family, and hit that subscribe button. I like to start every week with thinking about Thursdays and being thankful. I think I shared few shows ago, but in our family, we do a Thankful Thursday. And today I am thankful that my mom turns 82 years old today. It's been a ride. I'm so excited. She is in good health. She's gorgeous. It's so exciting that we have our mom, our grandma, our great grandma. She's got great grandchild. She's got grandchildren, son-in-laws, cousins, all the people. So we want to be thankful for her. So this week we're going to do something a little bit differently. We talk about education in real ways, and we talk about education really looking at power, mainly in our curriculum, mainly in our instruction, and mainly in our culture. And we're going to look at that whole conversation tonight for sure, right? But we're going to look at it from a lens of real leadership. And the person that's going to help us lead this conversation, I'm going to show you him in a little bit, but I want to just start where we always start. And we always start talking about what is power in education? Why do we talk about it? How do you understand it? So here we go. Every week, here is our definition of power in education. Education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power, the control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. So that is what it is, the capital P in education. As one of our, Beverly Tatum says, that power is the smog in the air in every relationship. And David Nyberg, he talks about power and he says, for us to believe that education is different than society when it comes to power is basically a fool's game, because education is society's teacher. And we are teaching our young people about power. The question is how? And so if we talk about power in this big, big way, the next question is, why do I talk about instructional power and what is it? So here it is. Instructional power, it can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, and building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. What does that mean? That means if you are an educator, if any part of your job influences and or impacts how a student learns, what they learn, when they learn it, and how they get tested on it, you are an educator. And those decisions either open doors or they close doors. And that's what we talk about power. So tonight, I am thrilled to talk to you or talk with you or be in conversation with someone who I hold dear. And I want us to sort of prime this conversation. And I want you to think about this thing. We talk about leadership a lot as though people simply just become leaders, right? It's just this thing. But most leadership times and opportunities often begin before the person becomes the thing that we call a leader. It starts with a conversation. It starts with an invitation. It starts with a recommendation, a relationship, and someone saying, you know what, you should be a leader. I remember when I got, quote unquote, we use this language of being tapped for leadership. I remember the day I got tapped to be a leader. One of the district person had seen me do a professional development. And right after, she came to me and she said, hey, there's this position opening up and we want you to apply for it. The thing is, not everyone receives that message, and not everyone is really getting an equal and equitable opportunity. So tonight, I am thrilled to welcome to the stage Ron Rapitalo. He's a managing partner of Stronger Consultant. But what's most important about Ron is he's a master connector. He says, you know what, I'm a connector. I connect people. And if I say you should meet a person, you probably should meet that person. And he is the host of Ronderings. And so let's say hello to Ron Rapitalo. Ron, Knicks in 5. Let me tell you what.
I mean, come on. I mean, I couldn't come to this without my Knicks cap, my Aaron Judge T-shirt.
Let me tell you what.
IL, but hopefully he's going to heal. I mean, Knicks in 5.
Knicks in 5. I can't.
Come on now. Did you sleep? I could not sleep last night.
Okay, so let's be clear. So last night, I'm like watching the game, like, oh my God, I can't.
Holy
I turned the TV.
Yeah.
I'm watching reruns of Law and Order and FBI. And I'm flicking back and forth because I'm like, do y'all want to win? Like, what? Y'all got some bad juju? Like, what's going on? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I turned back and I was like, whoa, what's going on?
We're chipping away. The lead was like,
yeah. And then we get to the end and it's, 99 and Brunson hits the 3 and it's this and that. And when he threw up the 3-pointer, first of all, I was like, can you please stop dribbling? Stop dribbling and give up the ball, but whatever. He tips it in, and then Obi, he throws it up. Obi, I was literally like,
shaking.
Physically shaking. So, well, I was just talking to Christina, who helps me run the show, and I said, the Garden is a hard place, and the Knicks tend to do better not there than they do when they're there. So I don't know. But we going back.
Right.
Going back to San Antonio.
I was having this conversation. One of my friends is like, boy, wouldn't it be nice if the Knicks won in the Garden? I'm like,
no.
I don't want to see a game. Right. That's what I said. I don't want to see a game 6. I wanted to close it because you know what? New York is everywhere. Let's be clear about some things.
They traveling.
Right.
Plane, car, boat. Listen, we going.
I'm gonna need to take Monday off.
Right?
When the Knicks win, I'm gonna need a day.
And it's so funny. I'm leaving. I'm in Massachusetts right now, so I'm leaving on Friday to go to New York because I'm going to go see 2 plays. I'm going to go see Proof. Yes, nice. Proof. Right. And I'm going to go see Joe Turner's Come and Gone. With Taraji.
Is Io and why am I forgetting his name? Jesus, this is really embarrassing. Don Cheadle. Are they still in?
Don Cheadle's in Proof.
Still is. Okay.
So Don Cheadle's in Proof, and then Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer are in Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Holy good. Okay, now.
So we're going to go see that on Saturday, but here's the kicker. The game's at 7:30. The play is at 7:30. It's 2.5 hours, but we'll get out, right? I'll be like, it's 2.5 hours. That's like 7:30. That's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Game's at 8:30. Fourth quarter.
You'll be right in the second half. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fourth quarter. And where are we staying? 47th Street. Where's the Garden? 34th Street.
What are we doing?
Mayhem. Oh okay, folks. So now y'all know that Ron and I know each other, right?
Is this a sports show?
Is this a sports show? What are we talking about here? This is the power of relationships. Mm-hmm. This is the power of having wonderful colleagues in this thing we call education that can talk shop and talk other things. And Ron, given what you do, you have spent years leading systems, helping other people learn how to lead systems. But what's most important to me when I watch you is how intentional you are
Thank
about
you.
bringing the scope of racial and ethnic humanity together and tapping into people
Mm,
who can broaden our understanding of that, affording access to or
yes.
constraining access to, right? So I want you to talk to us about how did you become a leader? Who tapped, who said, you know what, Ron, you're that guy. How did it happen for you?
That's a damn good question. Boy, you make me think about the Wayback Machine of like my last 50 years of life. Um, I think some of it started for me in college, right? My own K-12 education was very much like I was super bookish, academic. I did quite well in K-12. I was tagged for gifted and talented, went to
Mm-hmm.
fives in high school. And so, I didn't think about leadership. I thought about doing well in school. It wasn't until I went to NYU and college opened up all the horizons of leading, right? And
Mm.
leading started to mean like, in the student club atmosphere, student life atmosphere. Was it leading and being an officer, right? Was it participating in events, right? Was it, of like taking on a role in a group project, right? So I think college was great for me to see that leadership, wasn't always something I needed to be tapped on the shoulder. It was something you could decide in the right context to just raise your hand and lead. Right now, then leading means that people to follow you, right? But there are all kinds of ways you can do that. You get sophisticated about based on the context as you get older, right? I would say in the workplace, right? You know, the idea of being tapped on the shoulder is very much still in existence, right? When I
It
think about,
is,
you
yeah.
know, the first time I started managing someone is at a nonprofit I worked at for 7 years, right? And I think, the being tapped on the shoulder, like you're doing well in your job. Are you ready to like start like having more responsibility around projects and then starting to manage people? That's really where I started to like lead. Then
Mm-hmm.
when I think about my experience at this nonprofit, shout out to my folks in New Leaders, right, where I learned a
Yeah.
lot about
Mm-hmm.
National Leadership Development Organization. Where else can you learn about leadership than like working in an organization that's fanatical about it, right?
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
I learned a lot about leadership from some of the things that I didn't have in terms
Mm.
of formal title, right? Leading a training, even though I didn't
Mm-hmm.
wasn't leading
Mm-hmm.
people yet,
Right.
right? Being sought after for advice on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I also tied together around that time, I've always been uber involved in the NYU Alumni Association. And so, that learning to be a student leader, also being an alumni leader is where, you know, I got tapped on the shoulder to become a vice president of the Alumni Association in the
Mm-hmm.
2000s, like
Because you
full
were
time.
visible, right? You
Right.
were there, right? Like that's what
And-
happens with my husband and me. People see that, you know what? I have this affinity for my school.
yes.
Let me keep going. I loved it when I was there. I want to do more than I'm not because I want more people to go there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the elements being tapped for leadership, it's a little bit of enthusiasm,
Mm-hmm.
right? The visibility helps for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's also, I mean, from my perspective, being tapped for leadership also means not just solely being good at what you do, but it's also being able to like rally people, inspire
Mm.
people, motivate people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that looks like different ways, right? I think I'm a super relational leader who likes to rally people, right? I've had to learn over time some of the beautiful technical things that you learn in facilitative leadership, amongst other things, and what Heifetz put out about adaptive leadership, but it's also
Yeah.
understanding the power of our identity and my cultural leadership, right? And I think certainly when you gave me the nice shout out before you started asking me questions, right? I think a lot of my lean into bringing people together along racial, equity, lenses really came from the way I grew up in New York City and growing up in such incredible diversity that getting
Incredible.
to
Yeah.
know so
Yeah.
many people
Mm-hmm.
across so many different identities that I've just developed a fluidity to understand people, ask the right questions, but also it's just become intuitive at this point that leading for me comes deeply from the way I grew up in New York City around so many different people and having so much exposure and opportunity in so many places that I've worked so many places I volunteered, to be able to just step up and learn.
Right.
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 And the visibility, I think that being tapped for leadership, I want to like
Yeah.
being
Let's. Yeah.
visible,
Because I want to. Yeah.
I think is
Yep.
pretty important, right? Because it's hard to be tapped for leadership
Yeah.
unless someone has a really acute eye
Hi.
for
Yep.
leadership.
Yeah.
If
So take
you
a
are
look.
in
Yeah.
it,
Take a look at this.
yeah,
What the research consistently identifies: mentoring, sponsorship, and professional networks are
mhm,
significant factors influencing leadership achievement. But
yeah,
here's the piece: many school leaders report being encouraged by another leader
yes,
before ever pursuing administration. And here's the thing
yeah,
that you and I live in, and we know to be true:
yes,
educators of color often report having fewer
oh,
leadership
all the time.
sponsors
Hmm.
and fewer informal pathways into leadership roles than their white peers. Let's unpack that.
Yeah,
What does that mean? Because we brought up the relationship piece and
yeah,
the visibility. If we take our power lens, this idea of positionality, of ownership of a space, right? The work involved in all of that, the environments that are set up, and the relationships.
yeah,
What does that mean for a person of color who is going to have fewer actual, because we know that the leadership opportunities happen at the water cooler, right? They
yeah, yeah,
happen
right.
on the golf course of education. We don't have a golf course like business, but we have our own way of our own sort of metaphorical golf course. We got our water cooler thing. How do we as leaders of color, what does that mean from a power dynamic about leaders of color having access to or not to this leadership thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that we, as generally people of color, have been taught
Mhm.
that working hard will allow for visibility and achieving, right? And that has just
Right.
never really been true. I mean, I think
No,
in
it's
a
not true.
kumbaya, land that, yeah, that happens sometimes, but I've talked to enough educators of color, leaders of color who still deep down believe in meritocracy by their actions.
By their
Right?
actions,
Meaning,
right? Hmm.
oh, I am not getting out there and meeting people and advocating for myself. I am not getting out there on LinkedIn and talking about myself and my work. Right. I'm not getting out there to conferences to go meet people who could be helpful in my career. I'm not asking for mentorship or sponsorship.
Hmm.
Right. For every you and I that love to do this, Tangi, some of this I think becomes really important, that if you are in a leadership role and are of color, honestly think that sponsorship and mentorship is part of the equation.
It should
Should
be
be,
part of the equation.
right? I've often found, I think there's a protective mechanism for many people that I've talked to say, I'm only going to endorse someone if I can go hell over high water. And, I think because we've understood, and I've heard this particularly from many of the Black women that I know, including the misses, including you, and the several thousands of amazing Black
Time
females,
out. How
right?
is she feeling? Are you being good to her right now?
I'm trying my best, rub,
Okay.
make sure she, yeah, I know you should check in on me. It's 27 weeks on Saturday.
That's what I'm saying. Just so for y'all who are watching, Ron and his wonderful wife, who is just a dear. Shanita is a dear. They're having baby number 3. So I'm
I
like,
know.
and he's going to be a boy. So we're excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. But I
All right,
think,
back to the show.
you know, um, when we think about these values that are set across so many cultures and countries and identities, right? Paying it forward, I think
Mm-hmm.
we have to learn to take it seriously, right? That we never get to where we are in leadership without there being hundreds of seen and unseen people that have shaped our path to be there.
Right. Yeah. The
And
unseen people.
I think there's something important in thinking about that metric, which is not surprising to any of us that are in the space, right?
Right.
Is that we've got to create those spaces. Like, shout out to my folks in EdLock, Education Leaders of Color, for
Right.
creating that kind of space for
Mm-hmm.
us to come together to support
Yep.
each other, but also figure out what that means as a collective to be able to influence policy to support each other on different initiatives, to partner together, etc. Right? When if I'm gonna use the basketball analogy that shout out to my friends who are Golden State Warriors fans, right? Power in numbers. I
Power
think there's
numbers.
something to that, right?
Yes,
Where
right.
you can affect that change and seeing that metric, and that fewer of us as educators of color have mentors and sponsors is to frankly just be one yourself.
Right. Start
Right.
there.
If you're an
Be that thing.
educator,
Right.
do that with
Mm-hmm.
college students who are aspiring to maybe get into the profession,
Mm-hmm.
or other professionals who are thinking about getting to K-12 ed, right?
Right.
And you don't need a certificate or anything to be able to get to know someone and have a conversation, share advice. Sponsorship is obviously a higher level because that means you're like
That
seeing
was my
the
next
whole
question, right?
process,
Right. How
right?
do we differentiate? Like we say we want sponsors, and we say we want mentors, right? Mentorship is important, but we know having a sponsor is, like you said, you're intimating towards, it is the next level. So what's the difference? Because sometimes people don't know what is that difference between having a mentor and having a sponsor. Because if you have a sponsor, you automatically have a mentor. But if you have a mentor, they may not be a sponsor. So what is that difference? And what is the power dynamic in that kind of a relationship?
I mean, look, a mentor doesn't necessarily have accountability in terms of your success per se. Now, they can,
Mm,
depending on the mentor relationship, right? And the frequency of the setup of relationship and the kind of advice. And some mentors go above and beyond in terms of connecting people, putting their name in front of someone, giving them advice through a process. I think that's where sponsorship starts to come in. So, the
mhm.
clearest example of sponsorship, right? Someone's applying for a principal role in K-12 education, right? And they're a really fantastic AP. It's you as being a leader saying, hey, I'm not just going to wait till a reference check. I'm going to send a message to the person who's the hiring manager, the assistant
Mm,
superintendent, using a school district kind of like hierarchy, and send a really nice note because, wait, I was we worked at the same school together. We might have went
right.
to the same graduate program together,
That's
right?
right.
So there's
That's right.
often a combination of like social capital and like, work capital of being able to say, if I've reached a certain place in my life and in career, that if I see someone is doing good work,
Hmm.
don't wait until the end of the process to be able to like speak respect on someone's name or why someone would be good for the role. And then of course, like if you think of sponsorship, right, it might also be some of the things that relate to like coaching and other things. Let me get you in front of someone in that school, like who's been a principal there. That's
Right.
what the label
Right.
is, right? Let's coach you on like what it is to go through a principal interview process, the kind of
There it is. That
right.
coaching, right?
So
Yeah. Yeah.
sponsorship,
Mhm,
can
mhm.
sometimes just mean using your name and your stature to be able
Right.
to kind of like say, hey, if you're endorsing this person, and I've seen this in so many
I'm
processes,
sure you have.
it makes a difference, right? This is joining the Alumni Association board at NYU, to being able to get a job, to being able to be a leader, to be able to become, all the how people speak of your name and your reputation
Hmm.
matter a ton,
Matter of
right?
time.
And I have found like for all of us in the space, taking power, like it at some level, right? To mentor and to sponsor, at some level is free. I mean, it takes labor, it takes time, it takes energy, but for me, the dividend I've learned of being in the center of those things. So I'll give a clear example where I do a
Yeah.
lot of like mentoring, but also like sponsoring, I guess, right?
Yeah.
For folks who want to be EdLock members. They joke around with me like I am by far the most prolific nominator of
Of
EdLock
people.
members,
Yes. I believe that to be true.
right?
I believe that to be
Because
true. Yeah.
what I've learned, I'm not the gatekeeper of EdBlock because that's just not how I roll. But if someone is interested in it, the very least I do is have a combo with the person if I don't know them, right? Just get to know them. But I'm working with it's yes until it's no. And very rarely does it ever become a no, right?
Right.
And then I fill out the nomination form and then they got to show their stuff. Like it's, but me putting my name on someone because I'm well respected in the network and because folks know there's an intentionality of how I think about these things, even if
Hmm.
like the way I'm saying it here seems relatively loose because it kind of is, right? I'm not interviewing people, but I have a good feel for people. It's just like I'd like to say, that I have aspiring Clive Davis taste and understanding and assessment of it, right?
You're the Whitney Houston Tapper.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're the Whitney
You
Houston
got to have a
Tapper.
feel for things, right? But like,
Yeah.
some of his understanding, like I understand my own power in those dynamics. So it's like once
Mm.
people get in, like, yo, let me introduce you to folks inside the network. Come to convening. Can I introduce you to people? Like, and I would do that even if it was not
It was
editorial.
not
I
part
just
of
do
that.
that,
Right.
period. And
Right.
so there's such amazing power in that because what I found for me, it's not the reason why I do it. The dividend for me is that when I need mentorship or sponsorship or I need support, I
There's
get a
someone
lot
there
of
for
it.
you. Right.
There,
Because you put the seeds in the ground, right? And you do reap. Like if you plant an orange, you're gonna get an orange.
yeah,
You're not gonna get an apple from an orange seed, right? And that's important. And as we
yeah,
talk about this concept and this idea of leaders of color and the fact that the the opportunity is uneven, let's take a look at what that looks like from the numbers, right?
ooh, boy. Oh my God. Yeah.
56% of US public school students are students of color across all groups, right? 79% of public school teachers are white. That is a reduction in number from the teachers of color. It used to be upwards to 89%, 88% in that range. But
Yeah.
here's the next question, or the next stat that's really important. Asian Americans comprise rather approximately 5 to 6% of the K-12 education workforce and are often absent from leadership diversity discussions despite being one of the fastest growing populations. And about 55% of principals are white, despite the increasing diversity of the
Yeah.
student population. So we have the student population rising across all ethnicities and racial groups, and yet we see this stagnation in the representation and visibility. And I want to talk about that with you,
Yeah.
one, because of your work.
Yeah.
And, we're just coming out of Asian American Pacific Islander month, right? And what
Hmm.
that means, we are the country of months, all the peoples, and
I mean, right.
right. And
Yeah.
um, but as a person who identifies as Asian American,
Hmm.
what does that mean from, because there's a lot of myth and stigma and expectation around how people who identify in that group are meant to show up in the world, and how does that either constrain or afford opportunities?
Yeah, I have had the privilege. Shout out to my folks of Men of Color in Educational Leadership. They've had a relationship with Fresno Unified School District in
In
California, and so
California.
I've
Mhm.
been co-facilitating a API principal affinity group the last 3 years, right? So this very topic of how your identity comes up and how you lead because of the culture you come from and those expectations there, right? And
Mhm.
so, right, here's the thing about the API community, in case folks watching this don't know, right? It is a large collective of a hell of a lot of countries and identities and religions that, a lot of the stereotypes and myths that have been put out are not things that are true within most communities. In fact, right? Yes. Are there quiet Asians? Yeah. I was like, have you met Filipino people? We some of the loudest damn people on the planet. Vietnamese, like Korean, like, oh my
Case in
God.
point.
You know what
Case
I'm
in
saying?
point.
Like, we quiet? There's an expectation we're quiet, which I think is very much grounded in like, you know, colonialism, frankly, and
Colonialism. Absolutely. Mhm.
being Filipino, right? The whole like being quiet is a survival mechanism, right? And so when you don't question power, when you think that you just have to work hard, that is something I think many Asian Americans across many subgroups have been internalized in American culture. Now, some of this, frankly, also comes from like, their country of origin, the
Mhm.
cultures too. Can't
Mhm.
say that's not something that doesn't exist in, Philippine culture back home, Chinese culture back home, Hmong culture, wherever
Mhm.
Mom pop, and so that stuff also like the whole like being studious, not like questioning authority, right? And multiple truths involved here. Many of our countries have had revolutions and people
Yes, they
standing
have.
up. People power in 1986 in the Philippines, the
Remember
Philippine
that.
American. There's
Right.
and so lots of things exist at the same
At the same
time.
time, absolutely.
From my standpoint, it's like, what do you embrace and take hold of that you want to be your truth? And I think
Hmm.
I think what I would say with authority is that, look, in many of the spaces that I'm part of that are of color, I'm usually one of the few that like represents the Asian American community. It feels like a Chappelle show skit, and
That's
that's
right. Right. You're speaking for
what's
everybody. That's
what
right.
happens in those spaces, right? So for me, there's a both end. We have to do the work as a community to represent
Hmm.
ourselves and to
Hmm.
take power and to hold space while also being community with others to see where we have commonality to do things because there's power in numbers. For me, it's a both
Hmm.
end proposition, right? And so we cannot wait and expect Black folks, Latin folks, etc., to say, get on with us in these groups, and we're going to go make sure we fight for your educated workforce. We need to do that ourselves and then come together so we can all
Right.
do it together. Like, you can't,
Right.
for us to wait, for me, it's like bananas. You
It is
can't.
bananas.
It's,
Yeah. That's
and
right.
so, because I at times have felt frustration in different groups. I'm like, why are we not better? Why isn't our voice there? I'm like,
Hmm.
wait a second. Just like many of the incredible Black leaders that I've seen will say, farm your own shit.
Do it.
You just got to do it, and
You
I
got to
think
do it. Right.
there are
Yeah.
times of
Hmm.
what we've internalized, I think, as Asian Americans, is don't rock the boat,
The boat.
right? And
Yeah.
I think that hurts us, right? And I think, I mean, I come about it from a different mentality because of how I grew up in New York City, the social justice lens I started learning at NYU, and
That's
being
right.
around so many different people, that I think when I show up in spaces being the Asian American that I represent myself as, I come on pretty strong.
You
I
come up
just
pretty
do.
right. You right because you show up
Like,
understand right. Like come up right. You show up understanding the importance of I I am here in this space. I belong here in this space. And I'm going to quote unquote take
yeah.
up the space, not
Oh,
the
a
space.
thousand
I'm
percent.
going to take up space, right? I'm going to let you know that I belong here like everybody else who is here. And a lot of
Thousand percent.
times people of
Yep.
color, and again, I speak for no group but the one I'm part of,
Hmm.
we as Black women have that same struggle, in
We all do.
education,
That's right.
right? Like
Hmm.
people, there's been this whole saying that people love our efforts, but they don't love our leadership, right? They want,
Right.
they want our
Hmm.
labor.
Of
They want
course.
our labor because they
Thousand
know,
percent.
get a Black woman in there, it's going to be whatever, you know what I mean? It's going to get done.
Hmm.
But when it comes to our leadership, then we have a different conversation, right? So it's almost the same, probably with your group as well. Your labor is appreciated, but when it comes to leadership, there's a different expectation. And I think all of it, my best guess, not my best guess, my knowledge tells me we are all still wrapped into colonial minds that we
Hmm.
are always at any given moment trying to get ourselves out of.
Yeah. And just one of the things I've learned, right? I will spend as much time pouring into an API educator or leader as I would a Black leader, a Latin leader, or
Mm-hmm.
a Pacific Islander leader, or an indigenous leader. Like, for me, if you're good folk at the end of the day,
You're good folk.
I'm a pour into you, right? Because what matters to me is making sure we have values aligned leaders that care deeply about understanding what this data is, and it does not mean that we are not worthy, that we are not capable. It means that the system has been designed to not have us thrive. And so, how do we get into these positions of leadership to start shaping the systems from inside out, while also having folks who agitate to create new systems that'll be better
Well,
without having to
you
wait for patience? Because
right.
it's hard to be patient inside of these systems that are just
It is
so
hard.
mucky.
It's so mucky. And you bring us to a fantastic segue. Every week we give 3 power moves. So I'm going to share the power moves with you. Let's talk them through. So
Okay.
power move number 1, examine how leaders are identified. What does that mean? Reviewing who is being encouraged to pursue
Mm.
leadership opportunities and who is not.
Ooh. Boy, can I tell you something that I've seen in the K-12 education reform space, particularly?
Oh, oh man. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you are willing to sacrifice your health and work crazy hours, that's how you get leadership.
That's how you get
Wow, you
leadership.
willing to die for this? You
Then
willing to
you're
work?
doing
I
fine.
mean,
Right.
and
Right.
I used to resent it being
Yep.
younger in my career. I'm like, because I never wanted to. Let me qualify the statement. I didn't want to work so hard that I lost myself.
Exactly. Yes.
I
And
was willing to work hard, work like that, and then
yep.
I would see folks like, "How are you 25 and 30?" And oh, because these folks like poured in the hours, and no shame on them, right? They played the game, and they're
Yep.
talented. Well, that's not about that, but I think at times we've looked at leadership, particularly the ed reform space, and seen that you got to bust your ass in order to lead, and then you get tired, fatigued
You get
leaders,
burned out.
and start. And
Yeah.
let's be clear around how I think when leaders get identified through this burnout martyrdom model,
Right.
oftentimes
Martyrdom.
those
Yes.
leaders,
Hmm.
whether being intentional or not, hurt others.
They do
And
because they
we
bring
don't
that
talk about
lens to
that.
the right. They
We don't
bring
want to
that
talk about
lens.
that. This is not to throw shade on people that get burned out because they're dealing with
Right.
like I, I had a dear friend who does fractional chief people officer work. Is like sometimes when you're grabbing your oxygen mask, you might elbow somebody on the way to grab it,
Right.
intentionally or not.
That's what's happening.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
you're
And I
right.
think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that kind of stuff that like burns me because I'm like,
It's not
yo,
supposed
why
to
do
be
you have
that
to be
way.
led by
Yeah.
someone like that?
That's right. And then looking at the pipelines through that race, gender, language, how people are speaking that experience and role to identify patterns as we look for that, right? What's the impact? Organizations expand leadership capacity because leadership potential is identified more intentionally rather than relying on informal networks, assumptions, and
Oh
that
yeah,
familiarity, right? Those assumptions that if I am the one who was there from sunrise to sunset, right? We had that, slaves work from sun up to sundown. If
hmm
we got that mentality, and we can talk about where that comes from because,
right.
the deliverer is mostly women. So we see it through the lens of a
There you go.
nurturer, and we think
Right.
women are just boundless when it comes to that. We
Mhm.
got to back up and look at this pipeline.
Go
Power
for it.
move number 2, build sponsorship, not just mentorship, connecting emerging leaders to opportunities, networks, and the decision makers. Like you said, I'm going to say, I'm going to put my name and attach it to you, right? Actively advocating, like you said earlier, for talented educators when opportunities arise. And then creating structures that expand access to those pathways and not shrink them.
I love it.
Yeah. And then what that means is educators are more likely to advance into leadership roles because they receive both guidance and meaningful access.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yes. Hmm.
All right. And then our last power move, lead across difference, building authentic relationships across racial, cultural, and professional difference. That professional difference, sometimes we power protect our professional networks and our professional identities, and we tend to stick with those who are most like us. So, how do we disrupt that to build those authentic relationships? And then learning from communities whose experiences differ from our own. And
Yes. Mhm.
right? That's really important. Like you said, you grew up in New York. I was born in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx for a long time. I tell people I am Southern fried North. That is how I describe myself,
I love it.
right? And
Yeah.
then creating leadership cultures where multiple perspectives are valued. But I like this word leveraged, that
Mm.
the perspectives are leveraged, leading to schools develop stronger and more inclusive leadership cultures because relationships become bridges rather than barriers. We want relationships to be bridges to opportunities and not those barriers. What are
Amen.
your thoughts?
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
makes
I
sense.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, when I look at those two other power moves, right? For me, I
Mhm.
wonder if you're in your experience, Dr. Tangi, where have you seen that systematized, whether in a school district, a charter network, like, it
It's
sounds
ad
like the
hoc.
answer. Yeah.
It
No,
really it's so like, it's ad hoc. There's no systematizing to it, right? Because
just sad.
we have to, one, be able to acknowledge the informal hidden curriculum of leadership advancement, particularly for leaders of color. There is a hidden
Yeah.
curriculum that so many do not know, and we have to be willing to, one, admit it. We don't want to admit it, because to admit it means we're just like the other people who colonize, and we don't quite want to be that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We don't want to
Yeah.
be that. And
No.
so we have to be
Right.
willing to say, we kind of do that thing too. We power hoard, particularly when we're looking at credentials. I will tell you,
Oh
having
Lord.
it depends on how I write my name, right? So in
Yes.
certain areas, I put the DR first,
Yes.
right? And then other times
Mhm.
it's the comma PhD,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
so,
Because Yep.
how
Hmm.
you write it, how
Yep.
you write it says something. And sometimes whether you got it, says something. We have to be willing to say credentials matter, but that doesn't mean that they are door closers if a person doesn't have one,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Because, having going through, and your wife's finishing up going through hers, it means that you have achieved a thing, you've done a thing, and
Yes.
she will be now part of the 1% for real. She'll be
Yes.
part of the
Mm-hmm.
2% soon, right? But what that means is we don't disparage it, but we don't hoard it and lord it over others who don't. And
That's
we
right.
understand that there is a space where all of it is necessary,
Yeah.
right? The power is necessary for all of it,
Yeah. That's
you
like
know?
seeing, for me, the parallel is like, how people move and how they like take care of their physical bodies, right?
Absolutely.
There's not one way to do it. Like, just because someone does high rocks doesn't mean they're in better shape than someone who
Hmm.
powerlifts. I mean, it's all a matter of like what goals and things that you want, right? There are several paths to like be able to be physically healthy, right? And let's be
Absolutely.
clear, being physically healthy doesn't mean that you're a good person.
It doesn't mean that you're a good person. It does not mean that at all. And so, that's absolutely true. Well, Ron, I want to thank you for helping us think more deeply about leadership, about
Absolutely.
representation,
Yeah.
sponsorship, and this idea of the power connection. You are a dear, and it has
Oh,
been a joy to spend this time with you tonight.
yes.
Folks,
Amen.
before you leave, I want to invite you all to find Ron anywhere on LinkedIn, any social media platform. He's there. He runs a show. He runs Ronderings, both
Which
as
you've
a
been a
show.
past guest, Dr. Tangi.
I
Come on
have.
now.
We
Yeah,
had
I
so much
know.
fun, right?
We did.
Wanderings as a newsletter as well as a show. So get subscribe to him. Go to his channel, subscribe. And before we leave, I want to make sure everybody sees. Remember our messy middle article series. It is out. Article 1 and Article 2.
Woo.
Article 2 is all about the messiness of middle school discipline. Scan that QR code. Get that link. Check it out on our website. It's on LinkedIn. You can find it everywhere. And that is our show for tonight. Oh, remember, hit the like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment. How did you think about tonight's show? Give us a heart. Let us know what you thought about it. And Ron, thank you again. And behave and be good
I'm
to
always
her.
behaving.
Well,
Wait,
that's
not
that's
always. That's not true.
that's relative, sir.
Uh-oh.
Nixon 5. Nixon
Nixon
5.
fine.
All right, sir. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later. Bye
All right, take
bye.
care.